Chair and Territory Leader of Protect Ohio Children, co-founder of PayLink IRA, helping launch the American Liberty Awards, and is now using his Wall Street background and past involvement with ESG to alert the public as to the dangers to freedom and liberty. A charmed life, Mr. Broadbent has partied with Leonard Skinner, been on stage with Fishbone, jumped from planes, traveled much of the U.S., been scuba diving with the great white sharks, fed gray wolves in Alaska, spray painted the Berlin Wall before going into Eastern Berlin, been filmed and interviewed for local and national news, is a frequent guest on various shows and programs, and now enjoys a quiet life with his family and 2 dogs in rural America, gardening and splitting wood when he's not training communities on how to battle woke school boards. Tonight he's going to discuss what is environmental, social, and governance, ESG. Where did ESG come from? And what are the implications? How do we find and avoid ESG if we don't like or want it? Please help me welcome Jonathon Broadbent.
One of my stage props. Hi everybody. What a great warm welcome. So I gotta start off by saying I am thrilled to be here again for one reason. A few months ago I was invited to come and speak, and I walked up, I put on a microphone, one of those cool headset things that I've always seen all the cool guys, like the pitch stuff. I put that on and I walked up and I blanked. And I just stood for a few minutes, like, to me, I gave myself a D. And I wanted to come back again because I know that I'm better than that. And I bring that up for a specific reason, because I want every one of us to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone. For me, I'm not a public speaker. I never thought I would be, and I never thought that I would be the person up here holding a microphone and speaking to you, but I am. I am because I have to be. I don't want glory. I don't want attention. I don't want anything for myself. I want my darn country back. And that started something for me some years ago. And it led to the wonderful opportunity to come twice now and speak to this group. And I do think that there's an element of, I don't know what it is. It does feel a bit like a churned life. There are elements of my life and the opportunities that have presented themselves and the circumstances. I look back and I'm like, how did that happen to me? Well, first of all, I'm going to start by putting on my Make America Constitutional Again cap. Because if you see my new, well, it's not new anymore, but my social media profile, this is what you're going to see. It stands out. I actually went to a McFan meeting, Medina County Friends and Neighbors. Lisa Woods, you're awesome, organizes that. Some time ago, there was a group there, and they had these hats. Ever since then, I put this on. Every time I wear it, people are like, one of 2 things. It's either, yes, that'd be awesome, or where do I get a hat like that? So it's kind of what I've become known for. I want to start off the conversation by asking if anybody wants to put some donations in this donation box. I have a donation box here. You can put some money in for woke companies and causes. We've got Vanguard, BlackRock, Target, Kohl's, PayPal. We've got CVS, LinkedIn, one of my least favorites. Unsurprisingly, I've been carrying this box. You can see how it's getting kind of beat up. I've been carrying this box around for a few months, and nobody's putting any money in. Yeah, light it on fire, throw the thing away, get rid of it. This is hated. Everywhere I go, I pull it out and people take pictures of it. And they think it's interesting. There's Bud Light, remember that? Bud Light with Dylan Mulvaney. You wouldn't want to put money in this box. But I've spent decades working on, with, and for Wall Street. And you may not know it, but the chances are really good that you're doing it anyway. You're taking money out of your hard-earned wages and putting it into a box just like this. And it's in the form of your IRA, your 401k account, brokerages, you name it. Wall Street, the world of finance, has gone woke, and it's a disaster. It is complete disaster, thank you. So, along the way, I'm going to try to make the craziest, most twistiest, turniest, bizarre circumstances in terms of events as understandable and bite-sized as possible. But it's important to know where this is all coming from, where I come into the equation, and where I've decided to assert myself. So I work in an area of finance that not many people do. It's a little niche that a lot of lawyers and really nerdy types and actuaries and legalese, accountants, all that stuff, they spend a lot of time working in an area called ERISA. You don't need to remember that, but that's what I do. I'm an ERISA expert. There are about 40 or 50 of us in the country who really focus exclusively on that, which makes us kind of, I don't know, weird mix of, we're needed. And I've done all kinds of work all across the country, arm in arm with people that I thought were perfectly fine and wonderful. I traveled as an invited guest and speaker of the IRS, tax-exempt governmental entities group. I spoke to state treasurers, I spoke with endowments and foundations, all kinds of people. And working in that area of finance also provided me with the opportunity to get to know all kinds of different people in finance. I got to know all the managers, BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity, payroll companies, ADP, Paychex. I know them all the way to the top. I know their technology, I know their software, I know how they work, I know how they interact. And I thought, that's a career. That's perfectly fine. I know these things, these are good people, I'm going to work with them, and life is good. That's what I thought. In 2015, there's a group based out of Santa Monica, California, that found me through their network. And they said, we want to build something new, and we're building all this software and stuff, and we need an ERISA expert. And their group of people, their network, said, call this guy Broadbent in Cleveland, Ohio. And they did. And I had some conversations with them. I was invited to come and serve on their advisory board for 2 years. And I helped them to grow and flourish and establish themselves. That company does something called ESG analytics. They built the ESG engine. I had no idea what ESG was in 2015. I've been in finance long enough to know the predecessor. And you know how the left takes things that seem like they're probably perfectly fine? Like in schools, they take SEL, social emotional learning. You're going to have to forgive me tonight if I kind of jump back and forth a little bit. I'm going to get to some of the reasons why I think all this stuff, all this nasty stuff that we're seeing is conjoined, it's all connected, it's all part of the same thing. But I hope you're able to follow along as I talk about a few different things. I am, in addition to what I'm doing to fight back against ESG, I am a chair and territory lead of Protect Ohio Children. And so I see a lot of commonalities between what's happening. And I'm able to connect some dots in ways that I think not everybody is connected yet, and it frightens the heck out of me. In schools, they took something that I understand in psychology is perfectly fine. They took social emotional learning and they warped it into something sinister to get their claws into children. In the world of finance, some really crafty, devious, nasty people took something called socially responsible investing, which I know all about. I've known that for decades. It's fine. There's no problem with it. That is something that says, if you disagree with tobacco, or if you're liberal and you don't like firearms, you can choose not to invest in that. There's no problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. Nobody should. It's your choice. But they twisted it into ESG. and ESG is awful. It stands for environmental, social, and governance, and ESG is a rating system. It is a rating system that sets out to break the world of finance. It sets out to destroy everything that we find bedrock in the world of finance and twist it in ways that manipulate people, markets, companies, and the world. So, for 2 years I served on an advisory board for this company based out of Santa Monica, California. Among all kinds of other things, I do a lot of consulting. I'm part owner of 8 different companies. I do all kinds of different stuff. By the way, I'm going to continue to interject. There are some devious, bad people who, a lot of them, who like to attack me online for all kinds of reasons. Not wanting masks on kids, not wanting mandated jabs, you name it. If you look me up online, you will probably see some people that attack me for that experience in ESG. Well, 2 things about that. One is, I never got paid anything. I didn't make any money helping that company. What I got out of it was an advisory role, and I got a flight, I got 1 flight out to Santa Monica, which was kind of cool because I got to reconnect with one of my high school buddies. That's it. The other thing that, sorry, this is a side note, but I just keep interjecting this because I keep needing to fight back online against the woke left who attack me at every turn. I am not, if you read the bad press, I am not somehow playing both sides of this issue. I learned a few years ago what ESG is and represents, and I had that sort of awkward conversation where I got to call the leadership team of that company in Santa Monica, California, and say, you know, guys, and they're perfectly nice. They're very far left, woke, and agree with them, but they're nice enough human beings. But I got them on the phone and said, that whole ESG thing, I'm going to have to let you know that our interests are no longer aligned, and I want nothing to do with you. And oh, by the way, I'm starting something called unwoke investing, which is going to fight back against everything that you represent. That was, it wasn't uncordial. It was an awkward conversation, though, to be able to call the people who were building ESG and tell them I'm going to fight you. But that's what I did. So I think that the reason I was tapped, it seems like a religious group. I think it's God's hand. I think I was put in a position to learn that so that I could understand it, so that I could fight. That's my view. So, in the world of investing, money management, how money gets invested, there are a few things that I'm going to give you some pieces. If you have a recording device, feel free to record or make some notes or something, because some of this is I'm certain it will help you. Please record this. I think actually there's a camera back there that this may broadcast. I'm going to give you some pieces. By the way, follow me online. You're going to find me all over the place. Unwoke. I have Unwoke Academy, Unwoke Investing, and I've just started unwoke.media. Yep, unwoke. It's the opposite of woke stuff. I'm fighting on all these fronts. So, in the world of investing, it used to be, in our parents' and grandparents' time, you worked with somebody who worked in finance, and you would build a portfolio, and you would know what you own. Well, kind of like, you probably have a basic understanding of the view of the light, the value that we got, the inadvertent value of COVID. In education, we saw when our kids were being taught, and the world is fighting back. In similar fashion, this woke stuff and waking up to it is lighting a fuse. It's lighting a spark of awareness and involvement on the part of people and investors everywhere. Sorry, I got off on a tangent for a moment on that one. The way that we invest migrated over a few generations and several decades into mutual funds and things like that. If you're an investor, you'll know exchange-traded funds. You might know unit investment trusts and collective trusts and all those things. All that is you giving the power to somebody else. You telling another company like BlackRock or Fidelity or Vanguard or Oppenheimer, one of those big money managers, you're telling them, hey, I trust you. Go ahead. Take my money, do what you want. That is coming back and hurting us. The left, let's be honest about where we are and what's going on. The left are using our money against us. They're buying farms, they're buying farmland, they're buying everything. Trillions of dollars of our money. And so I started thinking a couple of years ago when I realized, it dawned on me, I started learning and reading more and more about ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and what it represents, and I made the decision that we should be working toward what I call defund the woke. I'm using their terminology back against them. You know how they said defund the police? I say fund the police, but defund the woke. The way to accomplish that has been a little bit of a winding road, and I hope all this makes sense, and by all means, I'm going to pause before too long and ask for questions. I want to make sure that this is clear. I've given a lot of thought to the best way to take kind of the complex pieces that I have and make them understandable to any lay person, anybody just starting off, people entering the world of investing and finance. But here's the way that it works. You open up an investment account, and you may be pitched on something called an annuity, a mutual fund, or something like that. You're giving control to somebody else. My mission is to give the reins back to we the people. And there are going to be some steps to that. And just like all the other things, like addressing healthcare and pharmaceutical and the issues that we can see in schools, it comes down to us. I'm sorry to tell you, but there's some work that needs to be done. Some of us, preferably all of us, are going to need to roll up our sleeves a little bit because we've trusted the wrong people for too long. That's our government, that's our schools, it's our healthcare systems. We need to arm ourselves with information in order to be able to take those reins back from bad people who do not like America and reclaim our rightful place in leadership, controlling our own destiny. So, we used to be, forever, you think of Wall Street, and you think of what our parents and grandparents did. There were some sort of basic fundamental rules to what constitutes good. You look at a company, and you think about maybe investing in it, and sorry, I'm going to touch on this. It gets a little bit nerdy and into the weeds a little bit, but I'm going to come back to sort of high level in a second. But forever, always, there were basic, understandable, definable metrics. There were measurements of whether or not that company was good or bad. This ESG thing destroys that. It destroys trust. It inserts itself in a really nefarious way. And instead of creating tangible, objective value for a company, it creates subjective value. Subjective. So let me put that in a way that is hopefully a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but makes sense. Instead of now looking at a company to maybe invest, your money managers inside of your 401k or IRA, they're looking at other things. They're looking at how many battery-powered cars the employees operate, how many LGBTQ plus on the board. None of that defines the value of the company in real, tangible ways. All it does is allows companies like BlackRock with their trillions of dollars to control artificially the winners and the losers. Because you can't really define that stuff, especially in that really nefarious environment. I'm going to give you a piece of hope. Here is where there's a big element of hope. There are two major recent newspaper articles. You should look them up because they're glorious and they're beautiful, and I hope that there are a lot more of them. The American Airlines Union, American Airlines pilots are suing the union for mismanagement of their funds. Hoorah! It should happen a lot more and a lot more often. There's also, I found in Epoch Times, or Epoch Times, as people say, there's a New York Public Workers. The New York Public Workers have arranged to sue their pension plan. There's a little hint in there. I'm an expert on pensions, ERISA pensions. If you know what that means, you okay, Brian? Just a cough. So, if you know of people involved in those, go and tuck their sleeve. Tell them to take a look at the ESG inside of any sort of a fiduciary environment. So, pausing for a moment to define fiduciary. If you have an investment portfolio yourself, if you're investing your own money, you can do whatever you want with it. You can put it into rare coins, you can buy real estate, doesn't matter. But anybody tasked with the responsibility of managing other people's money, they fall into a different category. That's called a fiduciary. That's where I believe we are going to fight back and win against companies like BlackRock and Vanguard, because the managers, the people who are making decisions to invest the money that way, are breaking the law. I am certain of it, and I can prove it. Having the knowledge of ESG and what it is and how it built itself and how it's represented, all of the metrics, all of those working pieces inside of ESG, my plan now through Unwoke is to make as many people aware of what a fraud it really is in order to encourage people to go back and sue the companies who are managing their money. If you have a trust in your family, and there's a trust department at a bank, if they are putting your money into ESG, ask them about it. Get it in writing. Start documenting immediately. Because I believe that with the information that is becoming public, the things that I'm sharing through Unwoke, you will be able to take this information, go to a lawyer, fight back, and sue. I hope that there's a lot more of that that happens. So, I'm going to spell out step by step what this ESG thing is and what it represents for the future. So, environmental, social, and governance, I just defined, it's a nefarious way of manipulating markets and controlling businesses. Show of hands, has anyone in here ever heard of the Corporate Equity Index? One. There's a person who has heard of the Corporate Equity Index. It's unusual. Most people have not. That is a global, international tool that big money players use to control and manipulate companies. When you see international companies like Target or Nike or Anheuser-Busch doing things that seem like self-harm, they're doing it because they're told they have to. They're being told based on the Corporate Equity Index. What that is it's a measurement of that company's worth and their ability to borrow money. I'm going to put that in the simplest possible terms. So let's say that you are the treasurer of some multinational company, and you get the big shot muckety-muck globalists come and tell you that you need to start peddling rainbow flag clothing to children. If you are relying on those multinational banks and you are being rated in your corporate equity index score, you don't have a choice. The next step in the evolution of that, and it's clear and it's starting to happen now, is what's called a social credit score. So I described how there used to be an understandable way of evaluating the worth of a company. Right now, we all have a credit score. Everyone know what your credit score is, your FICO? What if I told you that that credit score is going to disappear? What if I told you that in a couple of years' time there won't be a credit score? It will be a social credit score based on your online activities, what you post, which politicians you follow. Probably get dinged if you follow Trump. I'm sure of that. If you're friends with a J6er, probably get dinged for that. So now we have the people who control all of the money now asserting a new value system for both companies and individuals. That should terrify everybody. The thing that comes next is what's called centralized banking digital currency, CBDC. If you haven't heard that term, I suggest looking it up. Centralized banking digital currency. I have a copy of an article called Between the Lines. Biden planning to protect us from cash. This is defined in this article. This was published a year ago. This is defined as potentially the most treasonous act by any president in history. I think maybe our board is as bad now. But CBDC, centralized banking digital currency, moves all of your money out of your pocket and out of your bank account and onto your phone. So now it doesn't take a whole lot of creative thought to imagine a world where you don't have a credit score, but you have a social credit score. And if your social credit score is bad, you no longer have access to your money. In addition to that, money is now being designed in a way that makes it expire. So the government might give you, follow that. Where do they get it from? They give you money, that's my question. But if they give you some lump of money, they might give you 30 days to spend it. And if you don't spend it, it disappears. And what they'll say is that's to stimulate the economy. Hogwash. It's your money. The way to keep it and the way to fight back against all of this stuff, it's doom and gloom and it's awful and it's horrible, but I think you need to face it head on and understand what it is, where it comes from, what people stand to gain from it, and then understand how to fight back. Several things. One immediate way of fighting back, we call it dis the left. Know where you donate, invest, and spend. Another way of looking at that is vote your values. If you are considering going into a store to purchase tennis shoes, coffee, or any sort of goods or services or products, I urge you to start doing two things. Take cash, keep cash alive. The only thing that's going to keep cash alive is cash. I say flood the system with it. Keep cash in your pocket, go into those businesses and spend in cash. By the way, you should know it is illegal in America to offer goods and services and not accept cash. That question comes up. There are some places in Europe where they're actually trying to force Europeans to go digital and have their phone with them which means that the only way to go buy those groceries is if you go up to that little machine and code in, and you have to use digital currency. If somebody were to try that in the US, you need to be armed with information and know that that is not legal. And there are some states, including Ohio, which is looking to cement that even further, even better. So Representative Jennifer Gross, if you're not already, stay aware of her. She's building and she's advocating for a new bill that will define currency in the state of Ohio, specifically as anything other than digital currency. It's a smart move. I hope it passes. We should encourage that and help her to work for it. So, in addition to spending cash, it's not just enough to have a pocket full of cash and go and spend that in places where you like to shop, but know where you're shopping. Know the values of that company and what they represent. Are they a multinational? Is the headquarters in China, for instance? Because in my book, China has clearly established themselves as an adversary. Yeah. I believe that we are currently in a war, and we have been for a while. My beliefs, I'm just going to interject this in case there's any doubt of how I formulated the opinion. When you get a chance, look up something called the Two Generals and look into something called fifth generation warfare. In a nutshell, what that means is that a new style of warfare has presented itself in the world that effectively is everything except kinetic warfare. It's everything except bombs and bullets. And all the stuff that we're talking about is included in that. I know it's complex. I know there's a lot to it. The people who created it have spent decades figuring out our weaknesses in the United States and has every intention of capitalizing on those. So that's everything from taking over our education system to discrediting and dismantling our local community police, picking away at our perceived weakest point, which is race relations, black and white. They've been picking at it for decades, trying to divide black and white America. Personally, I think that black and white America is closer than Chinese and our enemies bargained for, and I think that we're so close that we have fought back successfully, and I think that's the reason that LGBTQ is now being presented the way that it is. It's a personal opinion. You can call me on that or look into it yourself. But so, when you start to consider the companies where you're spending your money and how you spend, there is, and this is another one of those, I think it has to be God's hand. I got partway down the path of trying to just ring the alarm bell on ESG. I know enough about it to be able to say, hey world, look, this ESG thing is not what you think it is, it's bad. And so I started with a big expose on BlackRock on August 4th, 2022. I'd already rolled out Unwoke, and I was brailing my way through how to get messaging out to the world. This is bad stuff. And I stumbled onto a company called Second Vote. Has anyone here ever heard of Second Vote? I see a couple hands. So Second Vote is a company that they started 12 years ago in Nashville, Tennessee, applying Judeo-Christian metrics to the companies where we go and spend our money and where we invest. And they have tens of thousands of analyzed companies. And until a month and a half ago, if you go online to something called secondvote.com, and they had an app for a while, don't worry about going there now. I'll get to why it's closed, and it's not going to take you to the website for the moment. But for 11 years, it would tell you on the way into that coffee store, or considering buying those tennis shoes, or that sporting goods outfit or something, it would tell you their freedom index, basically. It told you where they stood, if they're a pro-life company, if they are pro-freedoms and liberties, and it graded them. So this, in other words, is a company based out of Nashville that's been around for 11 years that does exactly the opposite of ESG. Good, tangible things and applying Judeo-Christian metrics. So, through Unwoke and my fight to push back against ESG, I happened to meet the owners, and we became friends. Second Vote had to close in August. That was a kick in the teeth. I did a lot of work to try and get people to wake up to understand ESG and pointed them to Nashville, Tennessee, and said, go there. It's not enough for me to tell you what not to do with your money. I need to tell people where is good. The good companies, those Judeo-Christian, they're over there. And here's an 11-year track record of tracking those companies. Well, I'm going to get to the punchline. After closing, the founder of Second Vote, as of Tuesday last week, we signed a contract. He's given me everything. He signed over all the analytics, all of the intellectual property, the patents, the websites, social media. It's all mine. It's awesome. It's intimidating. It's exciting. I have amazing plans to really take that big. I really want to make it as public as possible. And I want to retool it in a way. You're getting some things nobody else has because of the timing of this conversation. But my plan is to make it way more community. You look at things like Yelp and those online ratings types of applications. My plan for Second Vote, by the way, Second Vote comes from the idea that your first vote is the ballot box, your second vote is with your wallet. And I think it's absolutely true. But I never would have imagined when I started on this course of fighting back against ESG that I would find myself holding the reins of Second Vote. They have listed companies, they have unlisted, they have charities, they have an incredible database of tracking these companies and how they behave. So I want to get that as public as possible. And the plan is to get everybody aware, not just of what woke is and how it's harmful and how it damages our money and it uses our hard-earned wages against us. It's funding. It's like sending bullets to your enemies. But also, I want to get good counter weapons, I guess I'll call it, into the hands of we the people and tell them the good places to go and to shop. Unsurprisingly, a lot of times, most of the time, those are just your local companies, local mom and pop types of stores. Which brings me to a second point. If you have cash and you go and spend at local mom and pop shops, my experience across the board has been love. And they just love. When we go in to some diner, or me, I get my car fixed at the same guy I've had for a couple of years now, and I always go with cash. And, you know, I can get discounts and deals and stuff. Not everybody does. But please do go in with cash, shop local, and if it's not local, please start looking at things like this Second Vote database that we're going to start publishing to analyze where you're spending your money. Because, like this box, you have choices with where you donate your money, where you invest your money, and where you spend your money. One last piece, and then I want to open it up to questions and delve into getting specific answers to anybody that has questions. But one of the pieces that's come up, we're working on building a model for something called private membership associations, or PMA for short. Thank you for that. PMA are a great way of addressing privacy and confidentiality. All right, so I'm going to insert another piece during all of this, and in addition to trying to fight for lots of different things in K through 12 and all that stuff, my main company is regulated. I've jumped through all kinds of hoops. I left Wall Street. It was a major undertaking, but I established a company that is securities related and regulated. I have, since March of last year, been under attack. I call it weaponized regulators. It's grueling, it's awful, it's every bit as ugly as you can imagine, and I'm far from alone. I just learned today of somebody who works in sanitary, agriculture, whatever, like the septic systems and stuff. I have a lawyer, I have a child psychologist, I have a nurse, I have doctors all across the country, people who are showing themselves to be anything other than woke left. We're all under attack. It's just part of the game, I guess. It's part of the strategy. But one of the things that I learned in the process of being under examination, can't see my air quoting, I've been under examination for 18 months. Those examinations normally take a day or two. 18 months. And it's awful. But I learned something. The regulators who oversee my business want to know everything imaginable about you. They want to go through me in order to find every piece of information they can possibly get their hands on about the clients that I serve. Now remember, the clients that I serve are institutional, but at the institution are individuals. Those regulators, it's mystifying to me, and I've been fighting for over a year and a half. They want home address, they want email address, they want what's called blotter, which means trading activity. They want holdings, they want to know where the money is for each individual associated with my client. So the first about 6 months was basically me just saying no. Pound sand. You cannot come to me. You can regulate me all you want. And I've said over and over again, if you want access to my financial records, you can have them. I'll even give you view-only privileges to my bank. I have accounts at Huntington Bank and several others. You can go and look all you want. You cannot have information about my clients. And we went back and forth and back and forth. My reason for bringing all this up is I have every intention of changing the nature of my business and anybody else in the world of finance or any other industry that's regulated to become unregulated. That's where PMA comes in. My plan is to build something that is replicable, scalable, and growable in a way that we can get out and service communities without this regulatory oversight. It's a nightmare. They attack with every intention of shutting us down. I just earlier today, Jake Lang is a J6er. I've gotten to be friends with him. He calls me from prison. I think he's back. He's on his 13th prison. He's spent 10 months in solitary confinement. He's a J6er. He calls me 15-minute blocks, and we talk on the phone. And I've found out that somebody close to him is suffering exactly the same thing because he's the father of a J6. That's it. That's all they need in order to be able to attack. So, I can't possibly overemphasize the importance of those private membership associations. When a private membership association is established, all of that stuff I'm talking about, the regulatory oversight of the people managing the business, whatever it is, hairdresser, food, agriculture, financial, doesn't matter. That is private. That is a private group no longer subject to regulatory oversight. That's mission critical to get our information away from the hands of those prying eyes. And I plan to build it in a way that is scalable. And so now we can start doing things like counties. There are 88 counties in Ohio. I'd love to see 88, at least 88 different financial private membership associations. So I'm paying to develop and build this. I plan to just share it, get the information, the blueprint out, and if you need seed money to fund local businesses, that's where it's going to come from. That's the investment. That's the alternative to putting your money in BlackRock. That's my vision. Thanks for hearing me out on that. Hopefully, all of those dots connect in an understandable way. We're definitely in a tough spot. There's work to be done, but if we all roll up our sleeves and stay in communication and follow, don't feel like you need to memorize everything I talked about, but I hope that I teased out enough to get you interested in following, joining the conversation. Joining if I tell people you know. If you know people who work in finance, please send them our way. Even the woke advisors or the neutral advisors. They probably, if they work in finance, they probably have people that they know who are not woke. They need to service them. They're going to need some pieces of what my group is building. Thank you. I want to open it up to questions now.
I have a question about the second vote, and I checked out the website. There's a farewell. What happened to them, and are you, if you can't say it, are you thinking of taking that into a PMA type scenario as well? Or are you, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. David Black started Second Vote as a side note because I think it's interesting. Dr. Black in Nashville, Tennessee, is fond of saying that he's actually not nearly as well known as his wife. Dr. Diane Black was actually the first female head of finance in Washington, D.C. So these two together are a pretty powerful and dynamic household. They built something wonderful. The short answer is, and a lot of this is just sort of a series of conversations that I had with Dr. Black over time and my personal understanding of the circumstances and environment. The amount of headwind, the amount of angst that he was personally put through in order to be able to establish Second Vote and roll it out, and then get listed, marketed securities on an exchange is unbelievable. I'm not speaking out of turn by telling you that he is a Vietnam vet. He came back with some injuries. So I personally think that he got to the point where he needed somebody with more fire, maybe a little bit more personal experience in the world of finance to pick up the reins and run with it. A lot of that speculation, but it's based on friendship. I hope that answers your question well enough, but he did. He made the decision. It was not a fun one, I know that for a fact. He did not enjoy making the decision of closing that at all. But the second part of that question is, do I plan on rolling it into the PMA? My answer is absolutely. But I plan on creating what comes out of Second Vote in a way that anybody and everybody can use it. We need to run with it and make it a big community thing, because it's not enough. I've worked on projects in the many billions of dollars, 1.7 up to larger than that, $2.5–3 billion. And to me, at the time, when I was working for big Wall Street firms, I was like, wow, check this out. Man, I feel like the cat's meow here working on this big project. It's billions of dollars. If I could move all of those tomorrow, it wouldn't even make a dent. I would not have an impact on the trajectory of these woke left companies. We need big movement, and that means we the people. So I have every intention of creating something that anybody and everybody can tie into and grab and run with. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you for being here, Jonathan. I'd like to know your opinion about Old Glory Bank that was founded by John Rich and Dr. Ben Carson several months ago. I did start an account there, and I'm hoping it's a non-woke entity, so please reassure me that it is. Woo-hoo.
If you can't see, I'm holding up my card. So
I knew what it was.
we have 2 of our accounts that moved over. It's too soon to know for sure exactly what they're going to be able to do and get away with, but I love the message, the backers, and actually just by coincidence, there was a fundraiser in Cleveland where John Rich was came and played right around the same time. So we had a chance to get to know John Rich a little bit. He's a country music singer, and he's one of those that fought back against Nashville and the left-leaning, the leftist labels, record labels. I think the short answer is I love everything that they're about and what they're saying, and I want more banks and more financial institutions to do that, because it's not going to be enough to move 1 or 2, 3 banks. We need big money. And connected to that, if you haven't heard of Old Glory, one of the first things that we the people need to do is make success stories. I have accounts at several different banks. My plan is to move some pretty large chunks of money over to Old Glory and be part of that success. I hope that more people will as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
2 quick questions. First is a little tongue-in-cheek, but not all the way. And then the other is more serious. The first is, would you publicly confirm whether you are or not suicidal?
That's a great question.
Just so we know in case.
My car has been worked on, my brakes have been checked. I am decidedly not suicidal. I'm very excited about our prospects. And yes, no, I'm not at all suicidal.
And then the other is, I think it would be helpful to just clarify for people, especially if they don't have a financial background at all. When you use the word fiduciary, what is a fiduciary responsibility of an investor? One, and then how does ESG violate that, which would then trigger lawsuits? What is ESG doing that violates those companies' fiduciary responsibilities?
Spectacular question. Thanks for prompting me to drill down a little bit further on that. So I mentioned fiduciary responsibility. That is arguably the most solid and stringent area of law in the country. It is inviolable, and it is tremendously tightly written. It, again, just reiterating what I said earlier, fiduciary means the environment where somebody is managing somebody else's money. A trust, a pension, an endowment, a 401k plan, certain financial advisors. If you are managing somebody else's money, you have to do that in a very certain way. There are steps that have become universal, and everybody knows and acknowledges those, and their defense in a court case. I've seen both sides, and I've worked on them, and I've created for decades back. I'm going to age myself here, but before internet and shared documents and everything, there used to be binders, and we used to ship boxes back and forth all over the country with these binders in them, and they were called fiduciary binders. And if somebody came in and sued you and said, you mismanaged my money, I am the daughter of so-and-so, and we have a family trust, and you didn't manage our money correctly. You pull out that file and say, here are the steps that we followed. And it shows that you have, that the fiduciary, the person or people managing that money, have made smart decisions. And there are a couple of terms that you may want to know. One is called the prudent man standard, although I suppose nowadays the woke left will be a prudent person standard or something, because you can't use gender. There's the prudent person standard, and there's also what's called a duty of care. You have a duty of care exclusively to the beneficiary of that money, not yourself, not a cousin, not your boss, not the company you work for. Those are unacceptable under any circumstance. You cannot argue that making a financial decision was helpful to somebody other than that one end user, the beneficiary. So, to answer your question, when you get into court and the American Airlines group or the New York workers or anybody else, 401k plan, and actually, if you look it up online, at a speech in Westchester near Columbus, I did a big expose on Procter & Gamble, because I dug into their 401k plan. There were major problems with Procter & Gamble. They're super far left, ultra woke. Yep. I think that their 401k plan is crying out for disaster, and I hope that they fix it. But here's the thing. Let's say you have a group of employees at American Airlines or Procter & Gamble, wherever, and you decide that you're unhappy. You think that your returns should have been more. Anybody can sue at any time. And you can jump into a court of law, and whoever made those decisions is going to have to defend themselves. They're going to have to say, I made those decisions based on this data. I know, unequivocally, because I looked at it. I spent 2 years immersed in the ESG data, and I happened to know one of the largest companies that tracks and manages for fiduciaries, and I introduced them. And now they're partnered up. And so most of the fiduciary due diligence that's done in this country that includes ESG, I had the bizarre position of having to introduce them and created that marriage. But while I was doing it, I got to see and dig down into the ESG, and I can show step by step how it is nonsense. It's undefinable. It's purely objective. Excuse me, I said that wrong. Subjective. It's purely subjective, and it lacks any reasoning whatsoever. So I think any reasonable court anywhere is going to find in favor of the employees or the beneficiary of that fiduciary environment. Did you have a question?
Yes, first of all, thank you for the wonderful information. Secondly, over the last 2 to 3 years, I've heard a lot about the quantum financial system and going back to the gold-backed dollar that Nixon took out. And what are your thoughts, or what do you know about that?
All right, so the first thing is, so there are 2 different uses of quant in my world. The more current and trendy one is like, computers are going to fix everything, and we're going to bring in AI, and AI is going to do all this amazing stuff for us. I find that highly dubious. I actually fought it off until a few days ago. A friend of mine came over, and he's like this IT guy. He loves computers, and he was like, "All right, we're going to check out what's the big one, QRT, or what are the initials?" ChatGPT, that's what it is, ChatGPT. He's like, we're going to check this out. I was like, all right, I'll look at it. If this is this great thing, so my first observation is that it looks for a lot of information from me. It wanted my mobile number, my date of birth, all kinds of stuff. So I made stuff up. I believe that all of that AI stuff is a data capture vehicle. That it's designed to get us to willfully, and actually maybe even pay, to give our data over to a server. And who knows where that server is held. So if you're talking about quant in the sort of data sense, I think that what that is just like just like those trading software that you can get online that shows you like, here, buy in and out of these stocks or buy these investments and you'll make lots of money. I think it's a scam. If that's the way that
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the quantum financial system. I don't know if you're familiar with the quantum financial system.
Oh, I'm sorry, I headed down a bad path. I actually am not familiar with the quantum I was focused on the word quant. I heard quant.
Okay.
The quantum financial system, my best guess is it probably has something to do with CBDC and probably to avoid.
No, it has to do with going back to gold-backed dollar. It's supposed to be a positive thing. I don't exactly understand how it all works. I don't know if you're familiar with Charlie Ward, but if you listen to some of Charlie Ward stuff, there is stuff out there.
So the suggestion is to listen to Charlie Ward and learn more about quantum financial, and that apparently relates to going back to the gold standard, which I do understand, and that would be perfectly delightful if we could get our dollar back to the gold-backed standard. But now you get into currency and exchange rates and debt and all that. So it's a heavy lift to try and get our U.S. dollar back to a gold-backed standard because there's supposedly on the books there's $32-ish trillion of debt. But then if you're not already, you should be asking the question, in debt to whom? Who do we owe that money to? It's an important question to be asking. I guess, I'm sorry, I don't really have a good answer because the first part of your question I'm unfamiliar with. The second part I do advocate for, and I do hope that we get back to a gold-backed gold standard. But the steps between here and there and the fights that would entail globally it's unfathomable because of how much we owe to other companies and debtors, or creditors, excuse me. So if there are no further questions, I think we're wrapped. Thanks everybody. Thanks for having us.